Hello, everyone. I'm Kat Timpf, along with Charles Payne, who's filling in for Eric Bolling, and Mercedes Colwin in for Ebony K. Williams. We are the Fox News Specialists. Just when you thought the war between President Trump and the media had reached a 10, it smashes through to an 11, maybe an 11.5. Unless you've been too busy firing off Roman candles and bottle rockets, you may have noticed the president has tweeted out a mock wrestling video of himself body slamming superimposed CNN logo. White House officials claim the president's tweet was meant to be a joke, but a lot of people in the media aren't finding it funny.
Is this president trying to impersonate Hugo Chavez, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Vladimir Putin? Because this is exactly the kind of language that leaders use when they are trying to undermine the press.
It's insanity. I mean, it really is. I mean, obviously, it's an attempt that might be successful to drum up violence against journalists, which is something he's been doing right along.
And it's a really disturbing look at the man running the country. Look, you take somebody, you slam them physically to the ground, you put a logo on identifying them. That's what fascists did in the 30s to people.
He is going to get somebody killed in the media. Maybe that will stop him.
Should all probably come as no surprise, the president telegraphed his latest media offensive during remarks at a Celebrate Freedom rally this weekend.
The fake media is trying to silence us, but we will not let them, because the people know the truth. The fake media tried to stop us from going to the White House, but I'm president and they're not. We won and they lost. The fact is, the press has destroyed themselves because they went too far.
The press went too far. What do you think?
Well, I mean, this is a battle that's been going on, but I think the post description with respect to that CNN superimposed wrestling thing, you want to talk about hyperbolic. That was so exaggerated to compare it to fascism and, yeah, I guess,
Chavez.
Kristallnacht and you know, some of the worst things in human history that telegraphed disasters to come. This is nowhere near. I mean, listen, we know wrestling is what it is. It's a fun, fake medium that everyone knows. People take their children to it. So the idea that that would somehow incite violence, incite someone to go harm a journalist, is so far-fetched that they do themselves a disfavor, in my mind, by going there.
But Mercedes, on the other side of that, I agree, but on the other side of that, don't you think that perhaps President Trump does himself a disservice when he does things like this? And if not, what good does it do?
I mean, frankly, it's a joke. I mean, it's certainly looking at that. No one can take that seriously and say somehow that the president is inciting violence. There's no way that anyone can really look at that and say that seriously. And frankly, it obviously passed the smell test. No one's going to take it seriously. They know it's a joke. And of course, you've got the mainstream media who's really seizing upon it. Even when you saw that thought, when they said, oh, isn't this going to incite someone to kill someone from CNN? Of course not. There's no conceivable way that would ever happen.
Well, let's meet today's specialists. She's a political analyst for Rasmussen Reports, a former news anchor on Blaze TV, and was a speechwriter for former Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist, but she specializes in making oven-roasted cauliflower. Amy Holmes is here. And he is an attorney. He's a host on the legal website lawnews.com, and he's the co-host of Always in Fashion on 770 WABC Radio. So naturally, he specializes in everything law. Jesse Weber is here. All right, Jesse, from a legal standpoint, this is obviously not a threat or something that could be called inciting violence.
I'm so glad we're bringing it up from this perspective. This is a First Amendment right. It's free speech. You can say this. And yes, no one would look at this and think of it as a threat or that it's inciting violence. Will people do things? We can't control what people do. Now, do I love the idea of the president using Twitter in this form? No. But let's break it down. The voters voted for this man because he's not like a cookie-cutter politician with his normal answers and everything like that. He speaks his mind, he is who he is, and he did absolutely nothing illegal here, and I think people are blowing it a little out of proportion.
See, Amy, here's my thing, though. Last week, he had a great week in terms of his war on media between the story with Anthony Scaramucci with 3 people getting fired over that, and then that tape where the producer was saying that the ratings are more important than ethics. Do you think he loses ground when he does something like this, though? Because then I think it allows CNN to make themselves the victim.
I agree with you, Kat, and I think that he body slams his own message when he posts these types of videos. But Charles, I take your point. Is he actually inciting violence? Does that mean families who watch this together are going to go out and tackle somebody the next morning? And Brian Stelter, the CNN media analyst at CNN, when he said leaders like Hugo Chavez, Vladimir Putin, Tayyip Erdogan use this type of language. I'm sorry, they don't just use language, they use death squads, they use hit squads. I mean, so the hyperbole from the American media is silly and totally out of proportion, and I think sort of a Chicken Little thing, because who's going to be listening to them anymore? I mean, Gallup just found just a couple months ago that in fact the public has more trust in Donald Trump than they do the mainstream media.
Yeah, still at the same time, tweets like this, I think that people say Trump's a fighter, but what does he win by doing this? I really can't have anyone.
He does reinforce the idea amongst his core supporters that he is a fighter, he's an anti-politician, he's someone who could be honest, that they're so used to politicians being manufactured somewhere by lobbyists and consultants and never being true and honest. So they feel a connection. Their connection with President Trump actually gets deeper with something like this. And the only thing I would say is it's not about, hey, either or. He shouldn't tweet, or he shouldn't, you know. But I do think that last week, in addition to the things you were talking about, there were some major positive things with the economy. Manufacturing, which, by the way, in the Chicago area was at a 3-year high. The number matched today. The market rocketed to a new all-time high. This is the stuff that we're all Americans. You can't dismiss it, and it's a beautiful message, because guess what? The mainstream media will never report that.
But you know what? In this digital age, people don't want conduits to people. They want immediate information. They want immediate access. The fact that they have access to the president directly, a lot of America applauds it.
Right.
They don't want the type of boundary to get to the message.
And I understand that. I'm just saying a lot of the same people who think this is funny might not think it's funny if it was President Obama and a Fox News head getting punched out. I'm just trying to be consistent. It's, like you said, completely legal. This is not a legal issue whatsoever. But is it appropriate, and is it the best way to get his message forward? As far as that, I would have to say no.
Here's my thing. I hold the president, I hold President Trump to a higher standard, and I would hope we all do the same thing. But it is nasty out there in the media, and we don't have any kind of civility whatsoever. Do I think that this was a great idea for him to do? No. But I don't think it's right what the media is doing. We have to have respect for the office. We have to have respect for the man. And if we have it on one side, maybe we'll see it on the other.
And Kat, to your point, though, I would say, look, this video did overshadow, for example, that he unveiled a new energy policy, new energy that's going to be helping our economy, that's going to be a boon for America. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about body slam videos.
Right. And he did. When he was posting that, he knew his supporters would think it was funny. When I saw it, I knew that his supporters would think it was funny. But in terms of getting his actual message out, I think it might make it harder for the larger America. All right. Well, amid all this uproar, President Trump tried to bring some focus back to his agenda today, tweeting, quote, "At some point, the fake news will be forced to discuss our great jobs numbers, strong economy, success with ISIS, the border, and so much else." And Kellyanne Conway echoed the president's sentiment earlier.
The media have now moved on from Russia to cover themselves, and I doubt that's going to help their 14% approval rating. The American people see that they're trying to interfere with the president, communicating directly through his very powerful social media network channels, but also they notice that they don't cover the substance of the issues.
Right. I mean, nobody would say that it's fair. Obviously, polls show that overwhelmingly negative coverage of President Trump. However, if he doesn't want the media covering the media, why would he be tweeting something like that?
Well, I think he's proven to be the ultimate troll, and he's having fun at their expense. But by the same token, he is underscoring.
You call him the ultimate troll?
He's trolling the media, right? I mean, he's having fun with the media. He's like saying, hey, listen, two can play that game. By the way, my platform's bigger than yours. But having said that, though, he also understands, and Kellyanne makes the point, that he's never going to get the sort of respect that just basic common flat respect for getting about political ideology that he thinks he deserves. And so I like this morning, for instance, after that particular tweet, it was all about the meetings he's going to have leading up to the G20 meeting. So he's resetting, and I think this is the week to do it. We get jobs report on Friday. So again, what we're seeing going on in this country today, when the Dow was up almost 200 points, I bet you not a single one of those mainstream media outlets talked about it, even though people's 401ks are as healthy now as ever in the history of America. So guess what? He tries to balance it, I think, And I think he's also a New Yorker. I'm a New Yorker. We're counterpunchers.
Yes.
And sometimes when you start counterpunching,
You're
you know,
brawler.
yeah.
Exactly, we are.
Right,
Roll up our sleeves and go to it.
Absolutely. But I think there might actually also be some method to the madness, if you will, that the Kennedy Shorenstein Center on Media has also found that even people who didn't know or have an opinion if the media was fake news, just hearing that phrase over and over puts it in their mind, yeah, that is fake news. So Donald Trump drawing attention to that actually raises a lot more skepticism in the general public.
The president of South Korea also mentioned fake news when he was visiting last week.
Exactly,
so you're right.
Yeah.
It's not just Americans, but around the world, the term fake news gaining a lot of traction.
Right, and I think there have been issues with particular stories, but of course, some people are concerned at the same time, Jesse, that do you think this has any weight of this being an attack on the idea of an independent press?
Well, I'm glad we talk about this because this isn't the main issue here. His options are limited in how to actually respond. Many people say, well, why doesn't he just do defamation lawsuits over anybody that's saying any negative commentary? That's a very high burden.
Well, his wife did. Melania sued over that Daily Mail.
Exactly.
But
that's a little bit different.
Yeah, but that's a little different.
But what I'm saying is, do what happened with CNN. You had an issue with a story came out and 3 journalists resigned because there was a little bit of pressure put on them because that story wasn't true. You want to go after the fake news? Really, use fact-checking. Go after stories where it seems to be uncorroborated stories, and go after that.
But even CNN retracting that story, issuing the apology, and those 3 journalists resigning, that was also under threat of potential lawsuits. So, you know, I think you need to put more pressure on the media to get the facts.
Would you rather have that or these videos? I don't know. Depends on who you are.
I'd rather have the truth, really.
There you go.
I'd rather have some. Well, Marist and NPR released a new poll asking Americans about civility under President Trump. 70% say U.S. politics have gotten less civil since he took office. Just 6% say they have improved. I mean, what do you guys think? They pretty obviously have gotten worse. Come on, let's be honest.
They're going to blame the executive branch on
I don't
something
think
like
anybody.
this,
I don't. That's not what the poll said. The poll didn't say it's his fault. They said they have gotten worse under President Trump. It didn't say because of.
I mean, as a litigator, I've seen a lot of more vocality in the workplace where people are really voicing their opinion and much more forcefully. But that's because the laws are in place, not because the executive branch of government's changed.
But let's face it, this is a trend that began a couple of years ago in the country, and then it really was amplified during the campaign, where you had civil wars within families, where friends broke up, and now what's been revealed is America. We're looking at ourselves in a mirror. We're a tribalistic nation of individual ecosystems and bubbles, and we're having a hard time interlinking them and communicating. It is a problem. It is something that ultimately, for the sake of the country, we've got to figure out a way to fix. So it probably has gotten worse, but it began a couple of years ago.
Do you think it should start with President Trump, though? Do you think he should try to avoid doing things like this to try to take us down that road, Amy?
I think it's obvious that it's a food fight that's going on between the president and the media, but I would give our audience just a little perspective. I encourage you to Google Japanese parliament floor fights. I mean, that is nothing. Congress is nothing like that. I'd also encourage you to look at the House of Commons when they have question time. I mean, there's booing and the prime minister.
But they can do it. They know
down.
how to do that in a way where they can take it and not have to sort of they don't carry the animosity, right? And that's an interesting trait, that their politics are more in your face, but they don't carry it with them, and the anger isn't there.
All right. Well, coming up, a repeal-only vote on Obamacare is gaining momentum in the Senate. Is this the winning strategy for President Trump and Republicans to move forward on health care? Stay with us.
Repeal Obamacare first, then replace it. That strategy for health care reform is gaining steam with Republicans in the Senate. Advocates for the proposal push their case over the weekend. If repeal and replace, if that bill fails to get through.
If politically, for some reason, we can't get that done, what we ought to do is get back to what I've been suggesting for the last 6 months, which is to push full repeal and then embark on an iterative step-by-step process to decide what comes next.
And splitting health care reform into 2, getting a warmer reception with the Trump administration.
If the replacement part is too difficult for Republicans to come together, then let's go back and take care of the first step in repeal. That's an option. And then at that point, if you've repealed it, you can come back with a replacement effort that could be more bipartisan.
All right, Kat, looks like what we're seeing here is that the needle is moving further to the conservatives, further to the fiscal conservatives, either, honest to goodness, repeal, then replace, or something that matches the rhetoric that we've heard for the last 7 years.
Yeah, and it's good to hear, but at the same time, do that when it's all said and done. What about the moderates? What about the fact that in so many people's minds, the idea has shifted that government should be micromanaging health care and insurance, even though these people are conservatives in name. That's certainly not a conservative point of view. I love hearing this personally.
You love hearing the repeal?
I repeal, absolutely, because for 7 years, I mean, first of all, I hate hearing what a mess it is and the fact that they're all eating hot dogs and fireworks. I mean, we're all at work, okay? I mean, come on, get it together. As important as all of our hot takes are to the American people, and I know they really are, something that's a little more important probably is health insurance. And people elected these people in large part because of that. And they're just saying, all right, well, I'll go on vacation and we'll worry about it. We'll maybe repeal, replace, maybe we'll do whatever. I don't know. We're thinking about it. That's not good enough for me.
You know, Mercedes, I always say Republicans made a big mistake when they opted for one word, and that was replace. When they were going with repeal, the American public says, you know what, you're right, I did lose my doctors, my premiums did go up, my deductibles went up, yes, let's just repeal it. But then when they added replace, they put this onus on themselves, and they've accepted big government by saying, yes, the government, the federal government should be in charge of 1/6 of the economy. So with that parental responsibility, you start to throw out things like fiscal responsibility.
Sure, absolutely. Look, as an employer, I have 1,200 employees in my law firm. Our health have gone through the roof. We're paying 30 to 40% more now under these new changes. So, frankly, it really boils down to this. Slow it down, repeal it, and then take it step by step. You're only going to get one shot at this. Make sure that what you're going to put in place is above board and something that you can live with, because it's going to go in infinitum.
And yet, Amy, the irony here in my mind, though, is if you read the tea leaves properly, perhaps the one shot that Mercedes is talking about would be something that's more akin to what the moderates want, because Medicaid expansion is involved and getting a few Democrats on board. I hate to say it, but that might be the easiest route for them to go.
Ding, 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 ding. You just hit the magic button there. Is that Medicaid expansion? 32 states, including the District of Columbia, opted for Medicaid expansion. If you repeal and you don't have a reform effort, then all of those low-income working families are going to then have their health insurance threatened. So you see Republican governors don't want it. Republican senators from states where Medicaid was expanded, they are looking, let's do a reform. Let's look at a moderate attack. And Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, he has said, we're not going to split up, repeal, and replace. And there's a reason for that, because Kat, to your point, do they get anything done up there?
So what do they do?
So
I'd like to know.
If they repeal, are these moderate Republicans going to roll the dice and think that reform is going to be happening a year from now? I don't think they're willing to.
Jesse, making the problem even worse is that President Trump was so successful, some of those former blue states that took Medicaid expansion also now, have Republicans in the House. I mean, the governorship and things like that. It's a serious mess.
I just can't believe where we're at. We had 7.5 years to figure this. And I say we, I'm talking about GOP lawmakers and people who are opposed to Obamacare. 7.5 years to work with Democrats, moderates, to try and come up with something. And here's where we're at. I'm going to take the position of John Kasich, who said, you want to repeal it. What does that even mean? What are you going to replace it with? What you're going to have a delayed
you repeal it but you have a 1-year clock.
So a delayed implementation.
Vote to repeal, right? And they say the repeal goes into place August 2018. Then the clock is ticking for, honest to goodness, brand new bill. Forget about all the other stuff and trying to appease everyone.
But Charles, are you willing to take the risk that they will actually get it together a year from now when they had 7.5 and they didn't?
You know, it's one thing to go and to argue that something is a flop. It's another thing to fix it. They're finding that out the hard way. They've got to figure something out. So I would think that I personally would love to see honest to goodness repeal.
Or me too. Or else, but if we have this garbage sort of half and half thing and has the same problems as Obamacare, it'll fail too, and then we'll wind up with single payer.
Also, I don't want to see the health insurance companies get a $50 billion wet kiss.
Right.
And also,
that affects employers. I mean, the employers are sitting saying this is a real problem for employers when you were talking about premiums that are going 30, 40, 50% higher.
Yeah, but if they take them down for a couple of years and using this $50 billion backstop, and then when that runs out, they rocking them back up another 100% like they did on the Obama, we're left at the same place.
And those payouts are the same kind of thing that Republicans, a lot of them were talking about being illegal and unconstitutional just a few years ago, and now it's like, hey, let's try this.
Kat, I just want to stop calling 26-year-olds kids.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
As my 20-year-old sits there. All right, Fox News'
he
John
appreciates
Roberts.
it.
Yeah, he's citing an administration source reporting that the White House senior advisor, Steve Bannon, is actually advocating for a tax increase on the wealthiest U.S. taxpayers. The hike would help pay for those middle and working class tax cuts. This according to the administration source. Bannon wants the top tax bracket to have, drum roll, a 4 in front of it. Now remember, the current income tax rate right now, 39.6%. Jesse, what do you think about this one?
Well, that's going to really hurt.
I mean, I'm checking out the suit and the watch, my man. You ready to pay?
I'll speak for behalf of. I'll speak on their behalf. I'll be their advocate. Here's the thing: we all saw President Trump go into the 21 Club here in New York and say we're going to lower your taxes for the wealthy individuals. But if you want to speak for the wealthy individuals, they pay 39% federal tax, 9% state, 4% local. They are arguing we pay our fair share. We voted for a candidate that we thought would provide some sort of relief to us. And the minute he gets in there, if he's going to be going with Steve Bannon's plan, that's going to change things up. Having said that, the idea of spreading a tax base through everyone to give more money into the hands of consumers and following that plan might be the right logic here. It's not an easy answer any which way you put it.
Yeah, I'm not for redistribution of wealth, regardless of what party label a person places on themselves. I know that Trump is a populist candidate, but I don't think this would have a chance getting through Congress anyway, or I hope not.
Yeah, 61% of folks in this new Gallup poll say they want a tax cut for the middle class. That's as most you're going to see across party lines.
Well, they were going to pay for it with repeal and replace of Obamacare. I think that this is what's called a trial balloon, and I think it's going to pop on July 5th. I really don't see Republicans getting behind raising taxes.
Mercedes?
No chance. I mean, there's so many people that say, we pay enough taxes, let's give it a break.
I will say this, though. If the administration is going to push for a 15% low rate for corporations, they put themselves in a serious pickle, particularly if they have middle America pay for it with stupid things like a border adjustment tax. That's just my opinion. I think you're making a huge mistake trying to appease the real serious globalists out there when you have middle-class Americans who just need a break. Let them keep a little bit more of their money. All right, straight ahead. At least 29 states now saying they'll defy President Trump's voter fraud commission. So what's behind the stonewalling? We'll be right back with it.
Welcome back. At least 29 states are now saying they will not fully cooperate with the voter fraud panel established by President Trump and its request for voting data. President Trump established a panel to probe allegations of voter fraud in recent elections, and he's not taking the defiance from those states lightly. Tweeting this weekend, quote, "Numerous states are refusing to give information to the very distinguished voter fraud panel. What are they trying to hide?" Hey, Jesse, I'm going to turn to you because, frankly, this comes up quite a bit. When just at a local level, I ran for local office, and there had been some allegations, some voter fraud irregularities where dead people were voting in the election. It was very simple. Voter laws are there. You ask for the information, and you retrieve that information, whether it's through subpoena, through litigation. Why are these states being so adamant when there are voter laws out there that say that that information can be disseminated?
Well, there's a lot of these laws in certain states like Maine, Tennessee, Kansas. In Kansas, that's if Chris Kobach, who's the vice chair of this commission, that's his own state, it forbids them from releasing certain private information of these voters. This is a privacy issue. We're talking about social security numbers, birth dates, things of this nature. So releasing that information, these states are not even allowed to do that. And when you have that, the problem is you don't have any concrete evidence of voter registration fraud, which is a serious issue. Right. But because you don't have that information and a compelling reason, many people say this is a waste of taxpayer money and time.
But I'm going to follow up on that because, look, Charles, we're talking about right to privacy. That's a big issue. Obviously, we all feel very passionate about it. But if you've got these allegations out there, then don't they have to be explored to make certain that changes are made for the next election?
Well, I mean, obviously, and certainly you would think some of these so-called red states would want to do it. But there's also this notion that we've been talking about in this country for the last over the last 8 years, and that's states' rights. And I think some of these states are just naturally, as a knee-jerk reaction, defiant. You know, the state of Mississippi normally would cooperate with the Trump administration, but I think there's a sense of defiance there. But here's the irony. If they pay the right political consultant, they probably can get all of this information out there. It's probably all for sale for the right consultant anyway. That's the sort of the irony of the whole thing.
Let's be fair, though. A lot of cybersecurity experts are saying that potentially as you were saying, this could lead to more hacking of the data or potentially manipulation of the data. That's whenever I hear that there's security concerns or privacy concerns, that's always something that I really, really listen to. Do I think that that is the earnest concern in all of these cases? Of course not, because as we all know, there is a certain segment of the population who all they have to hear is Trump wants to do this in order to decide, well, then no way on my end, just because it's a personal thing. But I do think that cybersecurity concerns got to be taken seriously. I don't want people knowing my business, especially not the government.
That's a great point, Amy. So let's take a look at that issue regarding cybersecurity. So aren't there consumers out there, they go to the store, they want to apply for a credit card, they'll give that information to, let's say, Victoria's Secret's, Target,
Victoria's Secret, that's interesting, Mercedes.
But, I know that was the first thing that went to my head. That's a little bit bad. But if you think about it, there are stores out there, you've got the credit card, that consumer's going in, giving all that information, their name, where they live, their social security information. How come there's this huge concern when the federal government really has a compelling interest in that information? They're saying, no, don't give that information. What's the difference?
Well, Mercedes, the key word is that they're giving that information. It's not being taken by a third party and sent to a central location within the federal government. That if I go to Victoria's Secret, that's my choice. If I give them my credit card, I know that I'm going to be getting a lot of catalogs in the mail for the next 5 years. And that's a choice that I make freely as a consumer. These governors are saying, wait a minute, those voters didn't agree to this. And when it comes to cybersecurity, you know, it's a lot harder to hack 50 states than one centralized database. Yeah. So I understand that.
I mean, with all due respect, I think the cybersecurity thing is not the real concern there. I think it's more of a
territorial
animosity toward the federal government that, by the way, has been well earned over a long period of time. Just a big frustration and concern when dealing with the big government.
Jesse, as a lawyer, let me ask you that. Yeah. So what does the executive branch of government do? There are these serious allegations that there was voter fraud. What do they do then? If the states aren't complying, what are the steps?
First, lay out how you're exactly going to use that information. And listen, we live in a day and age where Russia's constantly on the nave. Make this an issue. You really want to show that there was no Russian interference in our election? Let's prove it. Make it very clear how you're going to use the information and for what purposes.
And you can limit it. I mean, you don't necessarily have to give the entire Social Security number, as the request has said. Just do the last 4 digits.
Least intrusive means possible, and I think you might have a way to do it.
Right. Well, President Trump putting a new squeeze on China to help North Korea. Can it finally convince China to play ball? Don't go away.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialists. Our specialists today are Amy Holmes and Jesse Weber. So let's continue the conversation. President Trump putting new pressure on China to help confront North Korea in its nuclear ambitions. The president calling China's President Xi Jinping to stress the urgent, growing threat from the rogue state. The outreach comes after a $1.4 billion U.S. arms sales to Taiwan and the U.S. Treasury sanctioning a Chinese bank with alleged ties to North Korea. But will these hardball tactics finally get China to truly step up against Kim Jong-un? Kat, will this work?
It seems like nothing works. This is the foreign policy nightmare that we've been dealing with forever, essentially. But I do like the way that President Trump is dealing with this by at least trying. Our sanctions are certainly not enough. This is a guy who doesn't care if his people starve. But when you talk about a military action, that would just be guaranteed mass carnage.
Here's the irony, of course. South Korea gets a new president, and the first thing he does is stop us from deploying the THAAD missile system under the auspices he wants to do an environmental study. So if we can't get South Korea to help us protect South Korea, Jesse, we're in trouble.
I agree with you. I love what President Trump is doing here. I really do. You can't bury your head in the sand and think that this is a conflict between U.S. and North Korea. If there is a conflict between these two, it is going to affect everyone on the planet, including China, who has such good ties to the United States of America. And going after that bank that had ties to North Korea, providing weapons to Taiwan is a good it's not a threat. It's a good motivation for them to wake up.
The problem, though, Amy, is that China hates that we did this deal with Taiwan. And speaking of belligerents, they're still developing those man-made islands in the South China Sea. They're militarizing them, and they're putting weapons on them. So, you know, they get to hide behind Kim Jong-un's ignorance, but they're sort of guilty themselves.
Well, certainly, and they have their own regional aspirations. You're talking about.
I think they've got global aspirations.
They do, but don't forget though, North Korea is a nuclear-armed country with a madman, at the head of it, and he's been threatening that he's going to try to develop a missile that'll come across the Pacific Ocean and hit California. So this isn't just a problem for South Korea. I had a chance to chat with Gordon Chang, an expert on China, and what the president doing is exactly right, which is Chinese money laundering, going after their banks. He's like, look, if you put the financial squeeze on the Chinese, then all of a sudden you might start to see some cooperation. What we already know, though, is that China has already agreed that they're going to limit their energy exports to North Korea to try to put the screws on.
That's not enough. Since then, I think there have been at least 5 missile launches, including not too long ago this rocket that shows that now they're getting intermediate ballistic capabilities. At some point, they'll have long-range capabilities of hitting mainland America. So if they have nukes already, then they have the missiles to put the nukes on. At some point, it's going to trigger us to take offensive action.
It's a real threat to the United States, no doubt. Something extreme has to be done. This is the same dictator who reportedly fed his uncle to hungry dogs. I mean, this is someone who needs a wake-up call, needs extreme measures, and kudos to President Trump to take those through the
When you say extreme measures, what exactly do you mean?
Well, I really think ultimately it's going to have to take military.
You understand we're talking about, tens of millions of dead people if we do that, right? It's not something just to be said lightly.
No, I'm not saying it lightly, Kat, but with someone like this who really does, experts have come forward and saying this, North Korea is a genuine threat to the United States, something has to be done. Sometimes
there's a saying in North Korea, I believe it is, America brings a knife, we bring a sword. If they bring a gun, we bring a cannon. They're obsessed with destroying us. They know that if they hit us, I mean, Kim Jong-un is crazy, but he's not suicidal. So I think he might just enjoy toying with us to an extent.
But Kat, I think the point is here, though, when it comes to China, is that we all know we need China's cooperation in order to then, discipline North Korea. Hopefully, open it up to be a freer society.
I like how President Trump is handling this now. Let me be perfectly clear.
But maybe it's not discipline.
For now, but it may not work
let me go through the
because
history
he's
here.
so extreme.
The grandfather did 15 missile tests, and the rest of the world paid him off to stop. The father did 16 missile tests, and the rest of the world paid him off to stop. So far, Kim Jong-un has done 82. 82 since 2011. What does he want? Obviously, it's always worked to blackmail the rest of the world, and they've always been paid off, Jesse. They've been rewarded for this, and I think there have been talks, hey, what do you want? We'll give you some cash if you stop, but you're going to push this to a point of no return, because as ugly as the scenarios that Kat pointed out, the uglier scenarios if somehow they unleash a nuclear missile.
We're not where we were 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 5 years ago. What we have today is an unprecedented threat that has to be addressed, and President Trump is doing that. And the problem is, yes, what we have right now is Japan and South Korea saying we will come to you in the event of some sort of escalation, but it's China, the chief trading ally and ally of North Korea, that you have to go after. And what does he want? What does Kim Jong-un want? He wants everything. He wants there to be no more United States of America. He wants to wipe us off the face of the planet. He wants to be in control. I mean, it's pretty, when you're the head of your own regime and no one's talking back to you, your notions of what right and wrong and the global politics change.
And what he also wants, though, is to hang on to his power as a young leader of North Korea. I think that's part of it, that this isn't just for external consumption, it's for internal consumption.
We are all rational-minded people. I mean, for us to step into the shoes of this insane dictator and try to predict what he's ultimately going to do, we know that unquestionably that he wants to destroy the United States. That's in his core. It's in his DNA. He wants to do it.
But he's also encircled by old generals who want to know that he's tough. I mean, this is the same guy who used a rocket launcher to assassinate his uncle.
Yeah, but here's the thing, guys. One of the things when President Trump meets with Abe of Japan, remember after World War II, we made them take a pacifist constitution. I think the key is to let them get rid of that constitution, let them rearm themselves, because it's not just North Korea, but we also need something to stop the imperialist threats and ambitions of China.
Charles, Japan does not want to take on the cost of rearming themselves. They're perfectly happy to free ride on the
I think the reason Abe was elected was to bring back the shogun samurai spirit that's been fading from Japan for 20 years.
This isn't Syria. This isn't a thing where what we do military action, they're scared away. We do anything, and we're talking about nothing short of World War III. Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
I'm just hoping Dennis Rodman solves all this issue.
Yeah, well, exactly.
We know if Dennis Rodman is in North Korea, that's when that's when something may happen. Okay, guys. Up next, my Governor Christie, smashed by a wave of backlash. This after just enjoying a state beach that he shut down. Well, now he's lashing out. Stay tuned.
I spent the summer on you. spent the summer on you.
In our White is Even Happening segment, Christie is getting scorched. Local media snapped the governor and his family hanging out and sunbathing on a Jersey Shore state beach yesterday. Just one problem. Governor had closed public access to state beaches due to a government shutdown and budget standoff. Jersey residents are screaming hypocrisy, but true to form, Governor Christie isn't taking the uproar or sitting down.
The governor has two residences in New Jersey, one down at the beach at Island Beach State Park and one at Drumswacket, which is also in Princeton and is a park where people come and tour and visit as well. This is where we live. It's one of the places we live. And so what a great bit of journalism by the Star-Ledger. They actually caught a politician being where he said he was going to be with the people he said he was going to be with, his wife and his children and their friends. So it's really a bit of, I'm sure they're going to get a Pulitzer for this one because they actually proved they caught me doing what I said I was going to do with the people I said I was going to be with.
My favorite part of this was when he was asked if he got any sun. He said no. And then his spokesman clarified, saying he didn't get any sun. He had a baseball cap on. Come on. This doesn't look good, okay? It just doesn't look good. He's not very good at this.
Well, the whole shtick is kind of worn thin. Bridgegate put that to an end. And I got to be honest with you, I feel so bad for those folks who work for Christie facing prison time, you know, trying to do his bidding. But having said that, why does the New Jersey governor have two mansions, one on the beach? Did you see that?
Oh, my God.
I mean, 1 million people have left New Jersey in the last 10 years because we got the highest property taxes, we got high taxes, we've got a terrible state. It's falling apart under our nose, and he's got two residents, two mansions, one on the beach. Give me a break.
And you know what else, Amy? That's not really his mansion. That's being paid for by taxpayers like you.
Yeah.
And that's not really his beach.
Exactly.
That's the
exactly.
And Mercedes, you were telling me during the break that you know the governor, that he's a brilliant man.
Absolutely.
You know, has a steel trap mind. So as a brilliant man, he should know that this is one of those let them eat cake moments, or maybe in this case, curly fries. That this is totally inappropriate that he closes these beaches for his constituents. And that's actually something I never understand with politicians. When they want to punish the other side by punishing their voters, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, Jersey should shut a lot of things down. I don't think that's a problem. It's a terrible.
You don't think it's a problem that citizens of New Jersey can't go to their own beach?
Sometimes, you know what? The state is busted. I think the state is busted. It's just like shutting down the government. I'm not against it if it means that, hey, we need to wake up in this country, in this particular case in Jersey, but I don't think the governor should be chilling on the beach.
Yeah, right. Jesse, imagine if he had handled this well and maybe, you know, took a little selfie saying, oh, I can't get on my beach vacation because everyone else can't either. Instead, he's partying on the beach when, hey, he should be working on getting the problem fixed. That's what anybody who sees that is going to think.
My biggest issue with that was the sandals. I don't think that was a good look. I mean, that's where you put it. But here's the real issue. The New Jersey Constitution says that if you can't get a budget passed, spending's cut, except for emergencies and things of that nature. So he didn't have anything to do wrong. But he's at the point right now where he's like, I just don't care.
Yeah.
He's at the point. He didn't get that presidential appointment into the Trump administration like he wanted. I think he's just got to the point with, I'm just going to do what I want to do.
Nobody's saying he did anything illegal,
We've
but
seen
look
him
at
do this
that.
before. We've seen him do this before. You remember there was a huge snowstorm in New Jersey, and he was down in Florida at Disney World, and he said, well, hey, I plan to take my family there. What do you want from me? I want you to leave.
One of the biggest
I want you to go back to Jersey.
The state of Illinois is on the cusp of bankruptcy. They haven't had a state budget in 3 years. And when government can't govern itself, it comes down to the people paying a serious price for it. And that's the more serious point here.
All right. Absolutely. Yeah. Christie, come on. Get something done, please. All right. When we return, we circle back with our specialists, Amy Holmes and Jesse Weber.
Time now to circle back with our specialists, Amy Holmes and Jesse Weber. I've been admiring your shirt this whole time. What a great sparkly shirt.
Sparkles.
Yeah, I love it.
Fireworks we're going to see tomorrow night.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What are your plans?
Well, after I take a spin through Victoria's Secret,
oh my God,
I'm going to...
My family will never let me live that down.
I'm going to spend it right here in Manhattan. I'm going to go to Central Park, I think, have a nice little picnic and watch the fireworks overhead.
Listen, there's no shame in underwear, first of all. We're all adults here.
Thanks, Kat.
My question is for you, Jesse. Tomorrow, there is a new episode of Fox News Specialist. So my question for you is, are you going to be just watching it once at 5, or are you going to be DVRing it to watch it all day?
I'm not leaving the studio. I'm just here. So I like to see you try to make me leave. That's
okay, well,
let me bring his bathrobe. I saw the bathrobe.
I was wondering what the hot was over there, so now I know.
Toothbrush and everything.
Your plans, you guys?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not going to tell that to the world. I don't want people following me.
Undisclosed location.
Yeah, there's people who are a little too nice and they creep me out, and people who are a little too mean and they creep me out. So I'd like to keep my plans private. How about you?
Carl?
I'm chilling, I think. You know, my granddaughter, she's 4. She's learning how to swim, so I love my wife is teaching her, so I'll just probably chill out in the back with a book and watch her teach her how to swim.
So you're saying you have a swimming pool?
Yes, I am.
Yes, because you won't be going. You know, it's very warm tomorrow, Charles.
Hey, come on. Hey, right, by the way, you got to check out the cufflinks, too. These are your day before July 4th cufflinks, Captain of America.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh, I like those.
Yes, I made sure to wear blue today. I wore teal on Memorial Day, and everyone had a big problem with it. So I'm not going to make the same mistake twice.
I've got red. You know, just working. I'm working tomorrow. I am working.
Thanks, guys. You guys are great.
Are you serious?
Exactly. So yeah, I am working.
Well,
We're open.
I'll do some research, but I'm not going to work, you know what I mean? But I am excited. By the way, guys, we got some economic data out today. That was absolutely phenomenal. I'm so excited because we get the jobs number on Friday, so I'm going to celebrate being an American tomorrow and being in this great economy, and we're all going to be happy.
Thank you to our Fox News specialists today, Amy Holmes and Jesse Weber, and Charles. And I would like to thank Eric and Ebony for letting us fill in for them today. We thank you all for watching, and make sure to follow the show on social media specialists, FNC on Twitter and Facebook. Remember, 5 o'clock will never be the same. And don't miss the show's special, July 4th special tomorrow. Special Report is next.
Even supporters of President Trump urge him to take a holiday from tweeting. But the commander-in-chief seems committed to more online fireworks. This is Special Report.